Back when the roguelike genre was truly birthed into existence, there were a handful of games that led the charge. 2013 had Rogue Legacy, Splunky, and Risk of Rain. The genre itself has grown past these roots, and now several of its defining characteristics find themselves in many of the games we play today. Randomly generated levels, one chance at life, and finding out item functionality through trial and error, it's all now a part of gaming. They're everywhere, from AAA to other indies, you can't escape it. This actually makes people think some games are a part of the genre when they are not. Some of the most recent high-profile roguelites are Wizard of Legend and Dead Cells, both of which still rely on the foundation set by those original games. Shout out to Binding of Isaac for being a hipster in 2011. So what does the future of this genre look like? You can tackle ease of use, different forms of progression, and so much content, all of which are valid forms of growth, but could there be more? You see, all of the great roguelite games share intrinsic values, the obvious set of rules that put them in the genre, but there are some extra attributes that seem to be mainstays, particularly graphics. It has become a rule that these games have pixelated art styles. There are a good amount of examples that defy what I'm saying, the aforementioned Splunky and Sunless Sea. These few examples pale in number compared to the droves of games that utilize pixels as a centerpiece to their visuals. And yes, I know the original Splunky did in fact use pixel art. But the growth in this sector of games has given birth once again. We now have a roguelike deck builder in the form of Slate Aspire, a game that doesn't have platforming, doesn't have traditional combat, and doesn't use a pixelated art style. It joined the limited ranks of Everspace, Immortal Redneck, and Strafe, in which all of these games forego the 2D side-scrolling and branch out. I'm excited to see the genre continue to take different forms and keep expanding. Who would have guessed there would be a spaceship roguelite or a first-person one, but there is evidence that growth is still possible. Even God of War dipped its toe into the roguelite genre with Ivaldi's Workshop, a section of the game that minorly shifted every time you visited it. You had to battle your way through the area not knowing if the direction you were headed was the correct path, but forging on ahead anyway. It was an interesting idea that felt a little tacked on, but that's okay. What I wanted though is more of these experiences. I needed more third-person action games that gave me one chance to push through all the way to the end. Another experience to discover new items and explore new areas charging into the unknown. March 28th granted that wish. A sequel to the game that helped start it all, Risk of Rain 2, was released into early access. Now, I usually stay away from early access titles because I like to play completed full experiences. This is why I'm not still playing Anthem. You can also never know if the game will leave early access and has tons of other factors as well. I've actually reviewed one of Hopu's 2 other games, and spoiler alert, I loved it. Heck, I also loved the first Risk of Rain, so I felt safe with picking up this game on day one. The first thing you notice when playing Risk of Rain 2 is the sense of freedom. There is only so much you can do in a 2D game to convey a feeling of motion. It's that jump to 3D where you feel like a whole new world of possibilities have been discovered. Think of the excellence of a 2D Mario game and the semen people pour onto Mario 64. It's that level of a jump. Even when you only look at the sequel and its predecessor, do you see how constrained One Last Dimension feels? It definitely makes the game harder, that's for sure. Risk of Rain 2 feels easier, and that works in its favor. There are just so many more options in how you can decide to approach any situation. It's not just a matter of walking back and forth. Now you jump up, crash down, and run circles around enemies. This rendition of the genre makes it hard to go back to the first game, even if it's a more complete one. The early access portion of the game is very noticeable. With less than 84 items in the game, there isn't the feeling of unlimited build diversity. You run into the same gear over and over. You're practically chomping at the bit, praying for more. It doesn't help that you have to unlock every item in the game. It's a game mechanic carried over from the first, in which you complete tasks to get access to new ones. Only then can you hope for it to be randomly generated into your game, so you can have a chance to find out what it actually does. Another area that feels a little lacking is the enemy variety. The first game also had this as a slight problem, but here it's accentuated more because it has less. I'm talking about 20 enemies including bosses, which is down from 31. Basically, any area that has a wrench icon in its place is an indicator that it's being worked on. So there are eventually going to be more playable characters, all of which will be available after early access. The best thing that will change is the number of levels. There are currently only 4 stages you can access. Now, this is tied directly into gameplay. When you start, you can end up in one of two places. This is the first stage. So when I talk about stages, I don't mean levels. There are 6 possible levels that you can explore, but that boils down to the 4 stages. So since there is one variant for stage 1 and another for stage 2, this means stage 3 and 4 only have one level for you to explore. Since the first game had you go through 6 stages, I'm guessing that more levels, their variants, and more stages will be added later. So since the game doesn't have a proper ending, you end up in a loop where you just continually go through the cycle over and over. You can eventually get the chance to kill yourself. The first time you do this will unlock a new character for you to play as, but that's it. Despite the lack of content, everything seems polished. There is no question about the quality of the game, it just needs more game in it, and I have faith that Hopu Games will deliver it in spades. You can tell just how much care is being put into it. Everything seems like it's in the game for a reason, one of which is that it's all the stuff from the first game, but that just makes the comparison easier. I love this jump to 3D because it's a direct translation of one of the defining roguelites, and it's again leading the charge into uncharted territory, pushing the genre forward. Hey, I just wanted to use these last few seconds to say that you can follow the development of the game over on Hopu's Tumblr page, as I've been. It's been cool to see the team work on the game for a year-ish and how far they've come. And also, yes, the music is fantastic, just like the first game.